with all of these, let me get into the minds part. First up, I'll cover the autonomous enterprise release impact, and then I'll go into the business ops. So the autonomous enterprise release impact. Now let's assume that there is a system in place with S4HANA system in place, or maybe ECC as well, which is put in place, and with some processes running already. And as we all know, there could be multiple requests from business in terms of changes to existing processes, to transactions, and they could be coming in as part of multiple transport objects. So these transport objects could in turn impact an already working process which is already stable. And we all face the problem of making sure that it doesn't break anything that was working fine already. And in order to do that, we simply retest uh, all of the test cases that we have as part of the test catalog. And if in case there aren't any test cases available, then it's an even bigger problem. So this was something which we understood uh, more recently, and we brought up something called as autonomous enterprise release impact. So what you can do within the platform is you can create a bot, and you can set up or link your environment to it. Back in the landscape management, how we created an environment, you can link that up, and you can say whenever trigger this particular bot whenever a transport is released, or analyze transport for a given date range, or analyze transport which are between a specific date range, or you can also selectively pick up the transport files which you want to analyze alone. So when you do that, it will present you the autonomous enterprise release impact dashboard. In this dashboard, you might have uh, lots of information which I'll cover. So it starts with the list of transport which was analyzed as part of this particular bot run, or or uh, mines run as we call it. Different transport objects underneath that, there could be multiple changes, uh, and with their different types, and each of the changes could impact different processes, maybe standard. And these transport objects can have different jobs. They could be workbench requests or customizing requests, but in turn they affect a process or a business transaction in the end, and which has to be tested. So what the platform can do is that, based on the transports that was analyzed and the objects present in it, the platform can do a complete check about what are the processes that these analyzed transport will affect. And out of the 200 or 220 test cases which a system can have, and this one is from the digital labs, how many of them are getting affected, and based on the criticality. And this criticality is something which comes up as part of the process criticality, in terms of if whether a process has got a huge value to it, and if the process has been executed multiple times in a given system, and if the process has been assigned to huge number of users related to other processes or transactions. And that's exactly how the impacted processes are presented with uh, high, medium, low, or critical impact, and the test cases, like I mentioned, and what are the top business processes that are getting affected, and the end users for that particular business object, and how you can go into the objects that are standard, which are present, which are already present, and which has got an impact, or which are introduced newly into the system, and it has got an impact. And then impact in terms of UI, and then it's more a report where we superimposed the front end UI components that are getting impacted with their impact score. So this is more a dashboard view. And in terms of the process view, we get the list of processes again, which were mined from the system. And if I could probably filter the processes that are having the high impact alone, I'll be able to get the processes. And each of the processes can have a comment that says create sale order is a process that is getting impacted because of a configuration change that has happened to the system. So this says there is a TR of, I'll copy this TR, and there is an object that is getting impacted because of this, and that object is TVKO. So this TVKO was nothing but a change in the sales organization. There was a sales organization which was added, because of which this particular change was getting recommended. So the TVKO is the object which is captured as part of a transport, and this particular transport is causing impact in sales organizations, uh, in in all of the processes that make use of the sales organization as a field or a lookup. So we get to see all of the processes related to sales getting impacted because of that particular transport object. We haven't reached that highest level of autonomous level yet, where there is constant checks in terms of if a transport has moved or if there is a job. These are something which are more in the beta version, but you will be able to run it in an automated way. When I say automated, you can start a job and the job will post you with these results, and it will also post you with I was in the processes. I'll cover the test cases as well. So the processes which are getting impacted. So each of the process can have test cases linked to it. So there will be the test case here. Just a second. Let me open up a test case. So there'll be test cases linked to it, and this test case is kind of available as part of your result here as a test view, where you can get that particular test case. Okay. Yeah, you can have the particular test case here, BA11. So this test case will say how you should run the test case. But in terms of this also getting automatically triggered and executed autonomously, that is something work in progress. And that's where RPA giants like UiPath or Automation Anywhere are looking for. So they have the test cases which can be triggered autonomously or which can be run on demand, and but they don't know what to test or what are the exact test cases to be tested because of the missing piece here, which is the AD component, which is the autonomous enterprise release impact, in terms of identifying what are the objects that gets impacted because of a transport getting moved. So they are utilizing KTern as a platform in terms of achieving your use case, which you mentioned, autonomously running it, and also identifying the test cases and autonomously testing them as well and come up with results. I was at the processes. So as a release manager, you'll be aware of what are the processes that are getting impacted, and we get to provide the processes are already part of your digital process. So a quick look up on the process owners is something which you can always do, and there are stakeholders who are getting recommended here as well. And moving on would be the transaction wise or the end user level information in terms of impact. Like, let me pick up the impacts that happen on Fiori and the SAP with GUI as well. So these are the different processes which has impact, but there can be different interfaces that are getting impacted, not just the SAP GUI, but also your Fiori components because of some development changes happening or some configurations or lookup information getting modified. So they get recommended here with the end user for these processes. It could happen because of the same transport object itself. And then finally, the test cases. Like, what are the different test cases that has to be tested for this particular release to be successful? So everything would be around sales, because there was a sales organization entry which we did, and it was done against that particular transport object, and which is why you see everything around the OTC as a line of business. So that's about digital minds, and which is the AD component. And like Satya mentioned, making it autonomous in terms of executing the test cases is something which is still work in progress. The platform, as I said, has already got the list of test cases which are linked to a process. By identifying the processes or the components that get affected, the platform it's just easy for the platform to suggest that these are the test cases that has to be tested. And in case of introduction of newer processes, that might take a hit. And if they are being if they are custom made, then that's where the platform kinds of slips up a bit. But we are trying to find solutions around that in terms of recommending that there is an introduction of new process into the system because of a transport object. So that is something which is still in works. So as part of Minds, this is one major component which I wanted to cover.